Mom, I can't take my husband anymore. He doesn't help me at home. The mental load is so exhausting. But Mona, you have to talk about it with him. It would be easier, you know? But I feel like I don't know him anymore. The connection is dead between us. It feels like an arranged marriage. My daughter, you have no idea what an arranged marriage is. I've been through it, you know. Is that true? You never told me about that. It was a long, long time ago. I was about 13 years old. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. Thank you. I was just a little girl born in the depths of a small village in the north of the country. Despite the lack of means, your grandparents and I were very happy. And as the only child, I did a lot of housework, which I loved, by the way. The dishes at the river, the sweeping of our large yard, and especially the work on the fields. I really liked the fields because of the fresh air and the wild fruits there. So it was not a problem for me to go there frequently. Moreover, to maximize the harvests, the women in the village had decided to do rounds of work in each family field. This allowed everyone to work quickly and increased the chances of a bountiful harvest. These performances were so successful that they reached the ears of the chief of our village. He was very interested and ordered the villagers also to get to his plantation from time to time and work there. Our parents chose the bravest children to follow them to the plantations to help them, and that's how I was chosen. The work began quickly and we started by plowing the land. The men were hard at work because the earth needed to be turned over. This part of work requires physical strength, so we children were off. A week later, it was time to plant. There was corn, wheat, and especially tubers. We, the younger people, were in charge of planting the seeds, so we got to work. My best friend was also part of the work group and she loved music, so she sang songs to put lots of joy in the atmosphere. It was at the heart of one of these joyful songs that we heard the whisperings, "His Majesty is coming." He came to supervise the work and see if we needed anything. First, he stopped at the parents' section. They discussed the time that the work would take, but also how the harvest was going to be organized. Then he came to our section, and while he was talking friendly to us, he stopped and stared at me. It made me so uncomfortable. I thought I had done something wrong. This awkward moment lasted almost 30 seconds. Then he turned around and left with his yard. We continued to work after he left, but the scene stuck in my mind. I wondered again and again what I had done to deserve such a stare. That evening, after my bath, I went to talk to your grandmother about it. For some reason, she burst into tears. I found her reaction surprising, disturbing at the same time. So I tried to find out more. So I told her, "But Ma, why are you crying? Is it something serious?" "I would have liked it to be otherwise, my child," she said to me while wiping her tears. "What does it mean, Ma?" "Don't worry, you'll get it soon," was her last response. After that, she got up and left, leaving me alone in her room. All this mystery aggravated my anxiety. Why does Ma tell me this while crying? My heart was pounding and couldn't contain my thoughts. Maybe I placed the seeds the wrong way and someone told the chief about it, or maybe I damaged one of the pickaxe without realizing it. I was not well at all. I fell asleep at night from exhaustion, but my sleep was restless. I kept thinking about the punishment that awaited me. At the first lights of the morning, the sound of voices woke me up from my sleep. I clearly heard two voices that I did not recognize, my father's voice and the muffled sobs of my mother, who was in her room. Then my father came to my bedroom and sat down on my bed looking serious. I was on the verge of tears because I understood that people outside had come for me. My father told me that he understood that I had to pack my bags quickly, packing only what was necessary. "But Mom, why didn't anyone tell you exactly what was going on? This is so scary." "My dear, I understood their reasons months and months later. They were afraid I would escape." "Escape? But that was the right thing to do." "They would risk heavy penalties, my daughter. The chief could have banished them." Now let me continue with the story. As I left the house, all the neighbors were outside watching me leave with this gentleman whom I didn't know. Everyone knew what awaited me. Through the fog, I could see the hands waving goodbye to me. while others commented my departure. It was a long walk to the palace. Once I arrived at my destination, elderly women waited for me at the entrance. With a tight expression, they took me to a wing of the palace that led to the women's quarter. They didn't talk much. My room was shown to me and a little backpack that I had was searched and stripped of its content. Then a few hours later, they came back to get me for my bath and my meal. These women took care of me for a week without telling me anything. I was the youngest amongst the other girls who were also undergoing the same treatment. After days of care, the other girls and I became friends, and I finally learned that my presence at the palace was for the purpose of serving as the chief's wife. All of the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place in my head. So the look he had on me was actually a sign of interest in me. But what I found absurd was the age gap. I didn't have the opportunity to choose. He must be my father's age, I said to myself. I had to find a way to foil his plans. But first, we had to lay low and find a strategy. Weeks passed. The women of the palace taught us the secrets of the royal life. How to dress as a sovereign's wife, how to speak in public, and above all, how to hold the ancestral cup in which the chief drank. We were about 20 to learn this because the chief was authorized to have as many wives as he wanted. We had this lesson where we were taught on how to behave when our period would come. It was on this day during the course that I understood that each of us would be delivered to him after reaching the age of puberty. It would mean that we were now women and ready for marriage. I realized that time was not in my favor, so I had to act fast. I started to be more active in the palace. I went everywhere I was sent, but basically it was a pretext to discover all the emergency exits in anticipation of the day I was going to escape. My ride lasted for a few weeks, and then on the eve of my 13th birthday, after waiting for everyone to go to sleep, I escaped using the small door of the left wing of the palace. It was pitch dark, and the only noises we could hear was the crickets in the bushes that strewed the path. I ran as fast as I could, praying not to meet anyone in my path, or all my efforts would be wasted. I walked through the lone door that led to your grandparents' house, and when I got to your grandfather's house, your grandfather was still sitting outside. He was filing his machete for the fields the next day. So when he saw me, I read the disappointment in his face. He asked me what I was doing there in a furious tone. While yelling at me, he called my mother to come and see the insult that I was bringing to the family for her own eyes. Your grandmother timidly left the house. The desolation in her looks and short words, she tried to calm your grandfather down, but nothing helped. Then he grabbed me by the arm and dragged me back to the palace. But this is horrible, Mom. Why didn't he protect you? He was risking a lot. Not only would his reputation be tarnished, but the rest of my family would have faced heavy penalties from me. That's why he acted that way. When we were shown to the palace, the court was assembled. It looked like they were already alerted by my escape and were preparing to search for me. On our arrival, it created a kind of silence, and the chief stood up to speak. My father bowed down in greeting and delivered me to him, while begging for forgiveness because, according to him, I acted the way I did because of naivety. Despite your grandfather's pleas, I still had to be punished to dissuade the others. So I was locked up in one of the least maintained rooms in the palace, where I couldn't talk to anyone. I stayed there for a month before being put back with the rest of the girls. Then came the day when a campaign made by the government of the time that was launched for the education of the young girls in the rural areas arrived our village. They sensitized the populations with the agreement of the chief himself. They invited the chief to a face-to-face meeting and managed to convince him to let the young girls he wanted to marry go. And that's how the other girls and I were freed. It's such a strong story, Mom. You have endured so much shocks. I know, and that's why I advise you to call your husband back. You can still work things out. Okay, I'll do it right away.